Hello again, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode of Holistic Healing with Lorrie. I'm Lorrie Rivers, and I help people with long COVID, mecfs, and other chronic illnesses to learn how to fully recover. I also do success coaching, and what we're talking about today, which is called EFT tapping, emotional freedom tapping, is applicable to every area of your life. If you'll notice behind me there, you'll see my bright pink hat, which I love wearing during the summer, especially down here in the Southeast. But I usually wouldn't have that showing, but we had massive storms come through yesterday and our house had some water damage, some wind and water damage. My house is all in disarray right now, which if your house happens to be in disarray, you know that it doesn't feel so good. It can make your mind feel cluttered. So I've been actually using this technique today that you're going to learn about. You're going to learn the science about. And we use this also in my Relief and Transformation course. And it's a way of retraining the brain. So you've probably run across brain retraining programs if you do have a chronic illness. They are very effective for some people, not effective for other people. I do believe that it is a very important part of holistic health, of the full recovery process from these chronic illnesses, because the nervous system does play an important part in our body's health. The thing about EFT tapping is that it gradually retrains the brain. It's the easiest, fastest, I say fastest in quotation marks, but the easiest, fastest way that I have found over the past 25 years of learning tons of different modalities, tons of different approaches, easiest and fastest way to reset the nervous system, to take care of any past trauma, and so many other things. And you can use it for success applications. You can use it for symptoms. You can use it for anything. So I'm going to share this with you, which is a excerpt from a workshop that I taught recently about the science of EFT. We're also going to include a link in the description of a tapping meditation that you can do along with me. And we're going to do it on Overwhelm, because I don't know about you, but that is certainly something that I experience in my life sometimes. It gets better and better the more that you do the tapping. And I had something else to say, but I can't remember it right now. So I hope that you enjoyed this workshop excerpt. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode. So we're going to be talking about something called EFT tapping. And I'm going to take you through some of the science behind it so that it's not super woo-woo for you. So what the heck is EFT tapping and how do you do it? And it's literally a way to retrain your brain, right? And like I said, we're going to get into the science of it, but it actually uses meridian points, also called acupressure points. And it looks like this. And you'll see me doing this in the car sometimes, or sometimes in class. And it actually has been shown in studies to improve performance, to assist the body in healing, to be able to shift emotional issues like trauma. We were talking about possibly childhood issues or things that you experienced this past year. You can radically shift them fairly quickly, which is really cool. It improves health, and it lowers your cortisol levels, which is part of the way that it does all of this for you. So just as an example of how effective it is, a randomized controlled study from 2020 shows that a 60-minute EFT group session reduced participants' cortisol, which is a stress hormone. We're going to talk more about that later, levels by 43%. And that's in comparison to working with a therapist, which reduced cortisol levels by 19%. And then in another study published in 2013, veterans who had PTSD had 6 weekly EFT sessions with a practitioner, and then the other ones received standard care. 90% of the participants healed from PTSD who were using the EFT method, compared to 4% of participants who received standard care. We're going to look into more about why that is, why it works. But I just want to give you a quick history of EFT tapping because it's based around Chinese acupressure points. But the way that it got turned into what we know as EFT tapping today is really interesting. This guy named Roger Callahan, who was a psychologist, and he was a pioneer in cognitive and behavioral therapies. He'd been doing psychotherapy for 30 years, and he had this patient who had a water phobia, and he tried everything for her, and nothing would shift, and this was like for 5 years. And he had actually learned about these acupressure points, and he just decided randomly, I guess it was an inspiration, to start tapping on one particular point because his patient noticed that when she experienced this phobia, her stomach started to churn up and do things. And this is the acupressure point that relates to the stomach. So he just, again, randomly had her start tapping on this point. Within a few minutes, they were by a pool because he was trying different types of therapies. Within a few minutes of doing that, she literally went, I think it's gone. I'm going to go to the pool. And she jumped up and walked away. And he was running after her because he was like, wait a second, you don't know how to swim. So don't go jump in the pool, okay? And she said, no, I'm not going to do that. So she actually just went and lay down on the floor and just splashed the water on her face. Before, she wouldn't have even been able to get close to the pool without having a panic attack or whatever. So he went, all right, wait a second. What's happening here? So he actually developed what we know now as EFT. His version is super complicated. It's very effective. But then this guy named Gary Craig came along and he popularized it in the 1990s. And that's actually who I learned from. And you'll find him all over the internet in relation to it, but it's all over the internet now in tons of different places. The Tapping Solution with Nick Ortner is one of the main places. Again, this sounds kind of woo-woo, so I want to bring you to the science of it. Basically, we have two different states. We go into either sympathetic when we're stressed, or when we're not stressed, we're in something called parasympathetic, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second here. Now, sympathetic, we also call it fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. Now, we'll go into what that means specifically in just a second here, but basically what happens is part of your brain, or actually your subconscious, is exposed to either an experience or a belief. Something triggers a belief inside you. Something gets triggered that makes you think that there is danger. It starts the alarm and sends the body into this sympathetic nervous system response. Now, the amygdala does this without any conscious initiative from you. In other words, you don't say, hey, body, go into fight or flight. It's just when that part of your brain senses danger, again, from beliefs even a lot of times, it signals your brain to pump out stress hormones in order to prepare your body to either fight or flight or to freeze, like those fainting goats. Have any of y'all seen the fainting goats? They're hilarious. Or to fawn, and to try to appease what the mind sees as the attacker. Now, this response was originally developed in our bodies as it was a really good response back in the days when we were dealing with lions and tigers and bears. But these days, we do still need it. If you're driving on the highway and you're behind somebody and they slam on their brakes, You want the parasympathetic nervous system to kick in so that you can have that adrenaline to slam on the brakes and not get in an accident. But our sympathetic nervous system gets triggered from these unconscious, subconscious programs or beliefs. And neuroscientists even estimate that at least 95% of our lives operate from those subconscious programs. Did any of y'all know that? I didn't even realize it was 95% or more. That means that we are making unconscious, subconscious decisions based on beliefs that we made either from our parents that we learned or from past traumas. It's very rarely decisions that we consciously decide to make or actions. So, how does this all affect our health and our success? We're going to take a look at that, and specifically success for y'all. We want to make all this easier. It's already hard enough. So we want to make our lives easier, and we want to make reaching our financial goals easier as well. So the reason that being in fight or flight, freeze or fawn, in that sympathetic response is so detrimental for us over time is because of what it does to our bodies. And just a couple of the triggers that could happen. What are some triggers that y'all can think of specifically around money maybe? I know bills, or it can just be in your regular life. When the amygdala that we were talking about, that part of the brain, and it's back here, actually registers that danger because of a belief that we have usually. We're not usually being chased by a lion. I don't know about y'all, but I don't usually get chased by a lion. But the amygdala signals the body to release that cortisol that we were talking about. And this is the primary stress hormone. And it does a bunch of other things too, but that's the main one we're going to talk about. And cortisol increases blood sugar so that you can fight or run or freeze if you have to. Freeze and fawn are a little bit different, but it also slows the function of the non-essential or harm things in your body that would be harmful or not helpful in a fight or flight situation. For example, it suppresses the immune system. And this is among a lot of other things. Digestion gets shut down, all sorts of things. If you think about this in terms of long term, if you're living a high stress life, if you get stressed out easily, or if you're always going, then over time, health-wise, this is going to lead to increased blood sugar levels. It's going to lead to weight gain, because actually, for a couple of different reasons, but one of which is that studies have demonstrated a direct link between cortisol levels and cravings and calorie intake. And then also unused glucose in the blood is stored as body fat. Then you also have a suppressed immune system. So this is going to mean that you're more susceptible to colds and contagious illnesses, but also over time your risk of cancer, autoimmune diseases, early aging, things like Alzheimer's and dementia, that starts to increase as well. And then you have digestive problems because, again, your body's going to shut down the non-essential things. This also is reproductive stuff. So if people are experiencing sexual dysfunctions, a lot of times you can look back to this prolonged stress that's happening in the body. Heart disease, because that cortisol constricts the arteries. That leads to high blood pressure, and that can lead to blood vessel damage and plaque buildup in your arteries. So that's all fun, but we're going to get to the solution for this. Not to worry. Now, how this affects your success. Remember, we talked about how it shuts down, when you're in parasympathetic, it shuts down your non-essentials. So that means your brain is only focused on eliminating the danger right now, and that the higher functioning goes out the window. things like creativity, things like being able to see the solutions, being able to just be happy and take a breath. Now, if you're in parasympathetic, this is also called the rest, digest, and heal state of your nervous system. This is where, obviously, your body can heal and really take care of itself the way that it needs to, but also your brain can find solutions. You are inspired to find solutions. You can take inspired action, and the actions feel better, right? You're more in flow. You don't feel like you're having to make yourself do things. At least not as much. It doesn't totally go away. And you're just happier. The parasympathetic state is actually when the serotonin is released in your body. And that's your feel-good hormone there, or the feel-good chemical. Another powerful study, I love this one, because I think mainly because it was over 5.5 years. And this is 5,000 patients received either cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a type of talk therapy, with medication if they needed it, both of those, or just tapping with no medication. 90% of the patients who used tapping, and this was with a tapping practitioner, showed improvement versus 63% of the CBT plus medication patients. And then the other really cool thing is that only 3 FT sessions were able to reduce the patient's anxiety compared to 15 sessions for the CBT. And 76% of the EFT people got complete relief compared to 51% of the CBT plus medication. I think that you can probably see why using EFT is very helpful for your health and for your overall stress and happiness, but also for your finances, for your business. Being an entrepreneur is stressful. I am one myself and I get it, totally. You have people that you're in charge of, you have structure, you have SOPs, you're trying to get clients or customers or whatever. If you're always in high gear and if you're always stressed about money or your business, then you're doing yourself a disservice. Now, again, this is not a perfection kind of thing at all. You're going to get stressed out, but it's the most helpful tool that I've found. And I've been doing this for 25 years. Please do make sure to share the podcast with anybody that you think would be helped by it, which with EFT tapping, everybody can be helped by it. So hopefully you'll share it with everybody that you know. And also, again, do join us in an actual tapping meditation. We're doing one on Overwhelm. You'll find some other tapping meditations in my YouTube channel. And I will see you in the next Holistic Healing with Lorrie episode.